why would we be interested in regional harmonization? And in harmonization now, I'm not meaning in the sense of the whole region must have the exact same structures for digital transformation, but think of harmonization like in music, where when they're all singing, the alto, the soprano, the tenor, and the bass come together, and it sounds like a beautiful harmony, and it works together to bring out an experience that's amazing for, in our example, the consumer. And it takes the region to the future and doesn't leave them behind. So let me pause there and then ask our tech support team to share Jane and Harsha's slides as I hand over to them for their joint presentation on regional harmonization towards inclusive digital economies. Thank you.
So perhaps if we go to the next slide, I can begin by responding to the sort of the big challenge as to what is digital transformation, but also within the context of governments and nations in seeking to actually expand both the digital economy, but the overall economy, improve society and also improve the way government works. One of the definitions of digital transformation that I really like is that on the right-hand side of this slide, produced by a former director of the UK's government digital service. And he said, it's applying the culture, the processes, business models and technologies of the internet era to respond to, as Nolwazi said, people and their raised expectations. And I think we saw a lot of that pressure to respond over the time of COVID, but this is also the fact that digital government, digital society, digital economy is not just about the technology. In fact, that's the easy part. When in the early days of e-government, when E stood for electronic, I used to say it actually stands for everything, because you can't just apply technology to a problem and hope that it goes away. And the challenge of regional harmonization, even with that beautiful metaphor of music, is that it's the leaders that have to have a shared commitment to the digital transformation of their government, their business communities, their communities generally, and the people, and not just do it for their country, which is hard enough, but to apply it across many boundaries. The notion is that the sum is more than the parts, but actually making that work is a challenge of which I've spent a long time, actually not just doing it, but also advising on it. And unless you've actually got the commitment of the politicians and the leaders across every sector that this is part of that process and they all have to be involved, it becomes really tough. And of course, the question is, why do we have to do it? Or why is it important? I suppose with speaking with Harsha previously, you can't just stop still, and to not do anything can actually be a worse result. But of course, the way that governments articulate why it's important is in terms of being able to lift the standards of living of citizens and businesses to always develop improving services, but through co-design and inclusion, to achieve savings, we know that can happen, to harness innovation because nothing stops anymore, and with digital capabilities, it's getting faster, to actually apply technology and predictive analytics for policy making and policy evaluation, and to create jobs with that strong digital economy, and that this is continuous. And there's sort of the art of transformation is to, through that leadership, have the ambition to reform and modernise. We saw through COVID the importance of building resilience, but also remaining relevant. And this is a behavioural element then of actually having incentives and sanctions to adopt and change, to building around the citizens, the constituencies, the customers. And this requires concentration on culture, skills and processes. And more now with a hyper-connectivity, drawing on the capability from the ecosystem of partners, private sector, community sector, other governments, in order that no longer is every government or nation alone, but that they can establish the means to buy and then use that shared capability, and then of course to measure and iterate. So really digital transformation leverages the technology. It isn't just the technology, but it relies on changing the thinking, operations and cultures. And we've always had this sort of the notion then of think big, start small, scale fast. And in this context, look for the benefits of what can be done in terms of a common infrastructure or capability across boundaries, across regions. But as you increase the number of countries and leaders and stakeholders, that increases the degree of difficulty. So if we can go to the next slide, please. There are many organisational and national factors that get either in the way or can facilitate this. So those factors have to change, be replaced, or stay the same. And then on top of that, the regional harmonisation adds an extra layer of governance, planning and delivery. Examples of this apply in digital Central Asia and South Asia, the small island states and Caribbean nations, and possibly the sort of Pacific Islands. The European Union is a demonstration of how digital identity and digital marketplaces applies across multiple nations. Federated countries like India, Australia, Canada also are challenged, but also see the benefits of working across boundaries and borders. And I'm very much aware of the efforts of the Africa Union and the single digital market. And the ASEAN Digital Master Plan that I've put the link here for 2025 also sort of contemplates what has to be different for nations or the same for nations. And the components are making sure that there's connectivity, looking at the digital infrastructure, cloud services, platforms, smart solutions, but that enabling environment, as you can see in the blue circles here, just get magnified at a regional level. And of course, having a central program management group is important, but I've overlooked that important one of skills, literacy and innovation. Just finally, in the last slide, next slide, I think it's important as to getting the foundations right, and certainly data and privacy that the first session has dealt with is absolutely critical. Without the foundations of good data management and policies, nothing much more will be reliable and able to be done. But you can also see in this slide the importance of cybersecurity, policy making, skills, capability, measurement. And I should clearly say in the last slide was also tools and technologies and standards become absolutely critical, especially as technology is changing ever so fast, to actually have standards that you can rely on that can make sure that you're getting the results you need. And the final thing I'd like to say in this particular section is just to highlight the importance of digital mindsets from the ministers and the prime ministers and presidents all the way throughout the organisations and the public and private and community sectors, and real people having the literacy, digital literacy, to be able to make use of what's happening, problem solving in ways that highlight the ambition, the curiosity, and then the decision-making capability of applying a digital solution to some of the most wicked problems that we are dealing with across the world. With that, I should stop Nolwazi to make sure that we hear from Harsha.
Thank you, Jane. Let's hand over to Harsha to hear his perspectives.
Thank you. Thank you. If you can just go to my slides.
So that will be slide 9.
Yeah, the next one. Thank you. Nolwazi, you'd asked me about addressing digital transformation and harmonization within regions. What is the benefit, and what if countries are not really of a view that they should harmonize? May I address those questions?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Thank you. So basically, I was just thinking when Jane was talking, and recently I did a project on application of tools of artificial intelligence to help policymakers in real time address problems which arise in the area of agriculture. This was in Africa and Near East and North Africa. So for the FAO office. And if you are not digital, you can't even apply that. And once you have the digital capabilities or the dashboards which are available to you, you can assess what is likely to happen, where the problem is arising, how to address it, and even connect with various other advisors to take quick action. So digital is extremely important. It's just a background I want to give, but when I started with the telecom regulators in India, mobile telephony was just starting, and this was in 1997. So it's about 25 years ago, and it was starting in Africa also. And I used to talk to the regulators of Africa, and I've seen how mobile has changed the way in which various things are done, whether they are commercial, whether they are consumer interaction, whether they are social, health, education, administration, addressing emergencies. So just think of mobile and just blow it up to a much larger level. That's what digital enables you to do. And I've just given you an example in terms of time. It really shortens the time of what you need to do, your knowledge base, your options, etc. So when you have these tools, as Jane said, it's possible to have inclusive growth and development because others are linked with it. Easier implementation of support policies. Policies where in India, for instance, health policies, transfer of money, direct benefit transfers, when some of these concerns are highlighted by specific areas of population or administrations highlight certain issues which need to be addressed, they can be addressed quickly. And just the immense increase in opportunities. So digital transformation enables all this. Can we go to the next slide, please? And the other thing is, why do you need to harmonize? The moment you are in a digital world, transfers, territorial borders don't make sense. I mean, you lose control over a part of whatever transaction is taking place. Both time and geography just collapse. In that context, if you have to regulate, because without regulation, things will go just out of control. If you have to regulate, you have to collaborate, cooperate with others, other territories, other jurisdictions. So without that collaboration and cooperation, the digital world cannot function efficiently or cannot ensure that the social objectives are being met to the maximum level possible. So the collaboration and cooperation is very much important. And when two systems are talking, then the example of the song or music becomes very important. you have to be in harmony. If you are not in harmony, you will not be able to collaborate. You will not be able to cooperate with each other. So it is essential that you harmonize. Doesn't mean you have the same systems, but you have systems that work together. Next slide, please. So, in about 2000, the ITU, International Telecommunication Union, started the Global Symposium of Regulators. It was an effort for regulators to come together, share each other's problems, and also try and see who is able to deal with which problem in what way. Does that have a lesson for me? And can you build basis for better cooperation and collaboration? And they just came out with best practices guidelines for digital regulation. And you can see here the kind of things which that guideline includes. One is the recognition that such cooperation and collaboration is essential. Then it is essential also in order to respond to new and emerging regulatory challenges, common policy solutions. You have to be clear, what are you collaborating on? So it's not something in the air. You have to actually clarify, this is what we are going to do together, and this is how we are going to do together, and you have to develop your own capabilities for it. And you have to be aware of what else the other stakeholders are thinking of, what are their perspectives, what is the evidence of your collaboration, what is the outcome, and how to evolve. You can go to the next slide, but I think I'm reaching the end of my time.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Fine. No, I won't go on. You, Nolwazi, you take over.
No, you can finish your slide.
I can? Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, this is a slide which I prepared just to indicate that not every nation has the same perspective on what it wants to do, in which manner, and which objective it emphasizes in a way which is different from another nation. So when that happens, this CPTPP is the Comprehensive and Progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership, which is one of the top of the line recent free trade agreements between 11 countries. US was also there, but got out on day one. And what they have in e-commerce or digital trade context was at its time the most advanced understanding on regulation amongst nations, which they thought is required. So two of the aspects on which there is some difference of opinion across many countries, I just mentioned them. They are in Articles 14.11 and 13. One is cross-border transformation of information by electronic means, and the other one is location of computing facilities. So both the provisions actually prohibit you from putting barriers to these activities. In the sense, barrier, you're not expected to stop cross-border transformation of information by electronic means, and you are not supposed to insist on location of computing facilities. So barriers to easy, seamless kind of engagement in a digital world. And then they say that you may have your own regulatory requirements. And the provisions are similar in both, but I've taken the second one because it specifically mentions security and confidentiality of communication. So nations can have some security related concern. They may not be in a position to actually manage certain transactions where they are comfortable. So they may have that, but at the same time, they are still given the leeway to deviate from the normal discipline included that you will not block cross-border transfer of information and you will not insist on location, provided there is a legitimate public policy objective and which is used in a least disruptive manner. But you have to justify. So the fact that there may be a basis for countries to deviate from harmonization is recognized, and it must be explained. If you don't explain it, arbitrary intervention like this is only going to stop what can be a larger benefit to the nation. So I'll finish here.
Thank you so much, Harsha and Jane. Those are incredible insights that have already drawn on some of the questions I planned to ask you. So you've taken some of my questions. Maybe I shouldn't have shared them with you in advance. But I think I'll pose this question to both of you, because it touches on underlying now complications that we're seeing as the world becomes more digital, or as we're moving towards being more globally living in a digital world or era. And that is, the country and world environment are becoming more complicated with technological advances such as artificial intelligence and machine learning that people are excited about and are jumping on, but are not really fully grasping the ethical and moral issues around them. So how would you advise countries and regions, particularly in the global south, where this is still nascent to them, to navigate this complicated environment as they work on harmonizing their digital transformation efforts? Because everyone's interested, everyone's seeing the benefits and the efficiencies that these bring. And I mean, they're mentioned in the payment aspects of financial inclusion in the fintech era, published by the World Bank and the BIS as an update to their first 2016 payment aspects of financial inclusion. And so how do you advise countries navigate as digital transformation is the new hot topic, and because we are living in the digital era now and it's unavoidable?
I might have a shot. Thank you for that question. And my slide 6 might be useful as backdrop to this. But I think the important thing is to not get too twisted by the latest technology that might be around. Now, at the moment, we've got artificial intelligence, we've got the prospects of quantum computing, we've got the benefits of blockchain in terms of procurement contracts. And as the Ukrainians are finding, being able to do their land registries and compile that in blockchain on the cloud. The key thing is to actually recognize that it's what governments, what people actually need to have and to be part of. What are those problems? What are the ambitions? And then how might technology assist in that? And working backwards from those things becomes really key. Otherwise, you can become very enthusiastic about the next best type of technology, rather than actually having this digital mindset that says, yes, we'll leverage technology, but we don't have to become the experts in it. And we know how many, how AI and machine learning is being applied in the private sector, in healthcare. We've seen it in education, but you don't have to. See, you can make use of the capabilities of international cloud service providers, because they service all of those. You can have it on a sort of pay-as-you-go basis. But I think the key is to actually not get overwhelmed by the different technologies, be clear about what targets and problems that are the most important ones, to make use of the digital ecosystem that has that capability that you can draw on, to begin the process of upskilling people within companies, within governments, so that they're not terrified or concerned about what the technology does. And as I mentioned before, getting the foundations right. AI uses a lot of data. Predictive analytics requires a lot of data. It needs to be clean data, not just whatever you can grab wherever. And that picks up the issue of ethics and how might that data be anonymized and encrypted. They're the important things that governments and people wanting to make use of these technologies need to make sure that those foundations are right. And also to not expect to make skyscraper equivalents or symphonies in the first instance. Do a little tune, create the means to actually build the expertise and the experiences on something that won't matter if it falls over. And importantly, having a champion or champions that actually understand innovation, failing forward, and actually building that capacity over time. And I think this is where in terms of the benefits of regionalisation, you can have a number of prototypes, proofs of concept being explored across countries in order to share that learning and apply and build up that capacity as you go. Over to you, Harsha.
Yeah, thank you. Basically, Jane, you pointed out something very significant in the context of AI, for example. You need to perform various background tasks, oversee data, and ethics become very important. Actually, if you are trying to implement AI or large data-based digital mechanisms, there is you need to have a board of experts who know about the ethical part. Without that, it becomes impossible, and large institutions will just not use that path for going forward without having clarity about the ethical aspects. So on ethics, there are a number of issues which those who are interested can find out by connecting with various initiatives. The UN has a system where they also talk about it. There are organizations which actually do this. If after this anybody is interested, I can link them up to these links also. So ethics is very, very important because this is a very disruptive world at one level. And Jane is very much, her advice is spot on. When you think about how the path forward is not by being the one who pushes the frontier, but how can you go towards the frontier because somebody else is making the frontier. And to the extent there is a different dimension in which your needs are different, you will then make the frontier there. But there are things you can pick up off the shelf. Those who have grown with technology like Korea, like China after Korea, they basically first learned how to use the technology, and then they went on to a deeper technological knowledge base of why it happens, therefore how to make the technology. So you're not walking a road which is fresh for you. Others have walked this road. Learn from the experience. And on ethics, in terms of e-health, in terms of business, you pick a topic. In terms of education, each one might have some common ethical principles, but they might be specific to them. So yes, ethics are very important, and to the extent you're going into some area, then there is already work done on it. Take a look at it, and where you feel no, it doesn't suit you, there walk your path to create something which is more relevant for you. And this is the way other nations have also done it.
Hmm. Thank you for that. I think, yeah, that's a good and a full-rounded answer that leaves no gaps or questions unanswered and helps countries really think about how to proceed forward on this, because it can get really complicated very quickly once you start stepping out of the regional way of thinking to your own country thinking, whereas we're thinking about the regional goals, especially when you think about how the African Union has its digital transformation strategy of 2030, whereas India is one country, but with many regions, and it has their own digital transformation strategy. So I know that time is almost out. Please send me a message on the chat team from internal team DFI to give me a time indication. My one other question is that from a macro stakeholder management point of view, so you touched on this, Harsha, but now I want to look at it from another point of view. You're looking at it from a macro standpoint of view, and now you're working to try to get everyone on board. And you've got all your ICT ministers or regulators involved. But at the same time, such an endeavor is a policymaker-wide endeavor. So your ICT ministers and regulators are like, hell yeah, we believe in this, you have our buy-in. But then come your company ministries or policymakers, come your financial policymakers, and they raise significant risks saying, oh, now that data privacy is becoming more, I don't want to say popular, but becoming more understood, and people are understanding their human rights to their personal information, personal health information. And they say, yeah, we understand regional harmonization for inclusive digital economies makes sense, moving from open data, open finance to smart data. But how will you protect us as the consumer in this whole endeavor? How would you address that question?
Jane, you want to address it? Should I take it? No.
It's for Harsha?
Yeah, for me? Yeah, okay, thanks. So this, you've raised a very important issue, and it's some of it has been, I talked about the CPTPP, the Comprehensive Trade Progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership. If you go to the IP chapter, intellectual property rights chapter, some of these issues, the balance between the consumer, the rights of the consumer and the rights of producers, they are addressed there. At the same time, as I said, privacy issues these are not new issues, and there are systems and methods which other larger jurisdictions have developed on what needs to be done so that at least you meet a requisite benchmark to make sure, yes, you are meeting the privacy issues. So the EU has done it. This is in the US. There are other countries also where they have this, and some are working on legal basis to create these aspects. At the same time, when you link up with something, and even I find myself doing it, there is a whole list of terms and conditions. Do you agree to this? Then without thinking, you just click the box yes, and that has various conditions which might actually cross the line at times, and that's where the regulator comes in. If I were the regulator, I would either have a model terms and conditions, or large digital initiatives, I would tell them to at least inform the regulator so that the regulator can make sure that certain lines are not being crossed. This is what when in a much simpler world we did with initially when we were opening up the telecom market, we basically did with the tariff policy reform. Some of the larger companies, they could not introduce just any tariff they wanted because it would disrupt the market. But over time, when competition intensified, we allowed it to be there. So model codes of conduct are something which is very, very common. There is a self-regulation by industry.
Yes.
Once the issue is understood, once the issue is the basic thing is the contours of the issue and the lines that should not be crossed should be clarified.
And can I just add in, and I know we're cutting short on time, data privacy and data sovereignty should not be the means by which countries lose this ability to apply digital transformation. You can have both, but you need to make use of the regulations, the sandpit for building that environment, and also the capability that exists in these shared capabilities. That might be shared government across regions, it might be international cloud service providers. And I have seen now what is possible when you don't give away the future of the country, but you actually accelerate the means to actually make those important policy outcomes achievable within a much shorter time that are safe, secure, and fast. Back to you, Nolwazi.
All right, thank you so much to both of you for clearly cutting the line between, when we're looking towards digital transformation and how, yes, data privacy plays a role, but we need to clarify how those two are not one. So I just want to give you each like 30 seconds to give your closing remarks before we are cut off from live streaming for our session. I've really enjoyed your thoughts and opinions, and I hope our audience has too. And I want to thank you so much for taking your time to join us today. So I'm just giving you both 30 seconds each, and then we say goodbye.
I'll start again. Digital transformation is not optional. Doing it well requires digital mindsets. Having that sort of ambitious, that big thoughts, the means to actually do it can be done through the digital ecosystem and with partners and other governments. But being able to focus on what matters and then being able to deploy both prototypes, look at the enabling environment, including regulations, building standards, making use of what works elsewhere, and then starting small and growing fast. I look forward to hearing how you go. Make use of everyone around you, even beyond you, the countries that you live in, because there's a lot of sharing going on across governments and regulators in order to actually take advantage of the technology. But in order to do that, making change happen for the right reasons. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Harsha?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Nolwazi. The fact of the matter is that technological change and digital inclusion participation is going on, and it is going on with its own momentum. As far as the governments are concerned, they have to make sure that this interaction actually happens in the best possible way, where all the benefits can be reaped by nations, by regions, and by global groupings. At the same time, anything which changes in such a major way, the way you do business, the way you interact, the way you provide health or products, etc., has the potential of some adverse impacts, and new issues have come up with data privacy, etc., with digital. So to the extent there are certain concerns, regulatory processes have been put in place There are examples of best practices. Take a look, evaluate whether it's relevant for you. Already a lot is being done in different regions. There is the ITU, there are, Jane has written about the Open Data Institute. The UN has initiatives on this. And once you see what is happening to actually reap the maximum benefits for the people of the country. And there are examples like the Indian system, which they have put together for providing social services benefits, is really one of the landmark kind of efforts. And at APEC level, they are doing a lot. So there are efforts, there is regulatory clarity, greater clarity, and there is lack of clarity also. So once you also recognize that, hey, this is an area where I really need to know more, join hands with countries which are actually looking for greater clarity, get more information. But there is a lot you can do, and it can be beneficial for all, provided you have an open mind to see that this actually connects and creates opportunities, but at the same time, you create the systems which will, the negative fallout, which will be prevented. So it's a game where huge opportunities exist, how to manage it, how to learn from others, and how to actually then, in that context, also see what others have done and what you need to do together. And doing it together is the key. Without collaboration, it's not possible.
Definitely. And I like that point, definitely. If you want to go far, go alone. Fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And so with
Nolwazi, you can't go fast if you go alone. That's my point.
Oh,
you can't. You will hit a wall.
Yes, you go fast and hit a wall, but if you want to go far and fast, go together. So at this moment, as the team is warning me, our time is up. I want to say thank you again. Thank you to the participants and attendees that joined our session. I really appreciate everyone taking their time to hear what Jane and Harsha have shared with us, which I thought was incredible. And I look forward to seeing you in other sessions of the Inclusive Digital Economy stream. And with that, we say goodbye.